Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and give you the strategic shortcuts you need. Today, we are wrestling with a paradox that honestly traps so many successful people. You're busy. You're immensely busy. You're fast on email, calls get returned, the quality of your work is great, but your most important client relationships, they just feel stalled, stagnant even. It's less like you're making progress and more like you're just walking in a dense forest with no trail.
That analogy, that forest analogy, it perfectly captures the problem. It's this feeling of passive success. So many professionals operate by what I'd call pure belief. The idea is, I do good work, I'm a professional, so the phone will ring, the relationship will just grow. But our sources today, they show that if you rely on belief alone, you're basically letting inertia decide your future. So our mission today is to figure out if you're running your relationships on that hopeful belief, or if you are deliberately building a strategic executable map.
Okay, a map. I like that. Let's unpack this and get right to it. We have to move past this idea that just being diligent is the same as strategic growth. Our source material today, it comes from this really great mentorship dialogue on high-stakes business development, and it suggests there are 3 foundational questions you can ask, like right now, to figure out if you're stuck. They really force you to separate the strategy from just activity.
Right. The first question is all about your preparation. Are you using a strategic client map, a real defined path forward, or are you just collecting what the source calls decorations for busyness?
Decorations for busyness, what does that mean?
It means those huge checklists, your endless internal email threads, those 30-slide presentations you build because you feel like you should.
Right, stuff that makes you feel productive.
Yeah.
And the second question?
That one centers on your objective, your core objective for the interaction. Is your client meeting set up for a presentation, meaning for you to talk and just deliver info, or is its explicit purpose to shift or move the relationship to the next stage?
A clearly defined next stage.
Exactly. And finally, the third question is about your motivation when you walk in the room. Are you going into that meeting to be seen, to look smart, to show how competent you are? Or are you truly there to see them, to see the client, to understand their shifting priorities, their unspoken worries, all of it? And look, if the answers to those 3 questions are even a little blurry, we can guarantee you are hiking in the dark.
Okay, let's start there with that inertia.
Yeah.
The trap of inertia. It sounds so simple, but it is devastatingly common. If I'm getting this right, the source says that meeting without a clear stated goal, it's basically the same as just letting that relationship drift backwards. So you think you're maintaining it, but you're actually failing.
That's precisely it. Maintenance is the enemy of movement. And think about your communication tools. The sources really emphasize this. If you're mostly relying on email, voicemails, asynchronous updates, you're communicating in echoes. You're just repeating history, confirming small details. The big strategic decisions, they almost never happen there. They're born in direct live dialogue.
So we have to create that dialogue. And that means we have to completely reframe how we prepare for meetings. If your prep leaves you feeling frustrated because, the client didn't get it, the sources are saying the problem is that you were preparing for a monologue. You were focused on your delivery.
We have to challenge that default mode. There's this great analogy in the source material about the hot chili softball team.
Okay.
The coach was so confident in his experienced players, he just skipped the basic catching and fielding drills. They seemed too easy, too fundamental. But then, in the championship game, a routine ground ball took a slightly weird hop, a small deviation, and the team lost because they hadn't practiced for the reality of the game, only the ideal version of it.
Wow, that's a powerful metaphor. The hot chili team performs exactly how they practice. So if you spend 2 days making a perfect 30-slide PowerPoint for a client meeting,
you've practiced delivering a monologue.
And that's exactly what you'll do. You prepared for the perfect ground ball that never comes.
And here's the key insight. The goal is not to make the client understand your slides. The goal is to make them participate in defining the solution. If you're giving a lecture, you're treating your client like they're just a passive recipient.
And nobody wants that, especially when their own clock is ticking. The source has this great line that just sticks with you. Nobody wants to sit through 30 PowerPoint slides on their own birthday. So why would they tolerate it in a business meeting? It's not about how smart you look. It's about how much progress they feel they're making. And that shift is everything.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we find the real structural reason why so many relationships get stuck. Even when the client is happy. The source calls this the anchor
The
bias.
anchor bias. Okay, let's dig into this. This feels
Yeah.
like where a lot of opportunity is lost.
It is. Clients are rational, busy people, so they tend to anchor you into whatever service you provided them in the past. If you built their website 5 years ago, you're the website person. If you handled one specific legal matter, you're the litigation person. They don't just automatically consider the wider range of strategic things you can do for them in the future.
Which means by doing a good job in the past, you've unintentionally sort of closed yourself in. You've framed the relationship. And we make this fatal assumption, right? We think, oh, they'll call me when they need something new. But if you don't proactively break that anchor and create the next step, the relationship doesn't grow. It
Right.
just exists.
Which raises a really important question for anyone listening. If the relationship is anchored, why do we procrastinate on creating that strategic plan? I mean, why do we avoid the very conversations that could break the anchor? The sources point to two incredibly powerful and very human psychological biases.
This is where we stop talking about deliverables and start talking about human nature. The first bias is the positive self-assessment bias. We are just hardwired to believe the current situation is better than it really is. We assume the client relationship is strong, it's healthy, even when the evidence like no new projects suggests it's actually decaying.
It's a comfort mechanism. It really is. Confronting the idea that a key relationship is stagnating is it's stressful. So we tell ourselves, oh, everything's fine, they're just busy. And this bias, it's like a cognitive fog. It lets us put off the uncomfortable work.
And the second bias is just as powerful, especially for experts. It's the professional bias. And this one is fascinating because it pits our comfort zones against our strategic needs. Experts, we naturally prefer doing the specialized work, analyzing the data, drafting the contract, writing the code, because that's our identity. It's defined. It's safe.
Exactly. Business development, or BD, is the opposite of comfortable. We often think of BD as selling, but as the sources define it, it's really about holding up a mirror and defining a direction. It forces you to confront the hard truth that some valuable relationships are just being neglected. So, the structural engineer would much rather analyze steel stress loads for a project that's safe to find expertise than pick up the phone and call a former client about some new, uncertain opportunity.
So we trade the uncomfortable high-value task for the comfortable low-value one. BB, in this context, becomes that strategic forest map. It clearly defines three things that break the anchor. One, where the relationship is right now, the truth, not the hope. Two, where you want that relationship to be in 1 year. And three, the specific path to get there, the goals and the 90-day tactics.
And the core principle for using that map is simple, but it takes discipline. You have to quickly assess the past, but then focus overwhelmingly on the future. Every minute you spend living in the past, rehashing old details, is a minute you've lost building the future. Your past success is just the price of entry.
Okay, so let's move from the map to the compass, the framework for actually doing this. This is the AIWI Framework Awareness, Insight, Wisdom, Illumination, and it's designed to make sure every single client interaction generates that crucial next step.
Right, so we start with A, awareness. This is your personal check-in. You have to ask yourself, am I meeting out of habit, or am I meeting with a very precise purpose? Am I just meeting, or am I actively trying to create progress toward the goals on my map?
If the goal isn't progress, the meeting is just a decoration.
A decoration for busyness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we get to I, insight. And this goes right back to the anchor bias. The insight is this. If you don't actively create and articulate the next step, the relationship will drift, period. You can't rely on them. You have to be the engine.
And the most crucial part, the one that really separates the planners from the performers, is W, wisdom. And this gives us 6 very specific, high-leverage steps for preparing a sharp, outcome-oriented meeting. This is what ensures you shift from monologue to dialogue.
Let's take a couple of these deep. Step 1 is the single BD goal. You have to define the one objective for the meeting, the single specific next step. But I have to challenge that. I mean, as professionals, we always have a few things we want to cover. Why is having 2 goals the same as having 0?
Because energy just dissipates when you divide focus. If you walk in trying to pitch a new service and get a recommendation and review the budget, the client just feels overwhelmed. They lose trust in your direction. With 2 goals, you're making the client do the hard work of prioritizing. And what do?
They prioritize nothing.
Nothing. So the goal has to be binary. Did we achieve X or not? That discipline forces clarity.
Wow. That completely reframes what preparation even is. It moves it from a status update to a targeted strategic move.
It does, which leads right to step 2. State the goal early. You articulate your single objective right at the start, but, and this is critical, you frame it entirely through the client's benefit, how this helps them, not your agenda.
And the third step, which ties back to that hot chili softball team, is prepare for change. You have to be agile. You can't be rigid. What if the meeting only lasts 10 minutes? Or what if a new decision maker just joins the call unexpectedly? Your 30-slide monologue is useless then.
Right. And step 4 is maybe the most radical shift. Practice questions, not monologue. Your prep shouldn't be you rehearsing your talking points. It should be dialogue drills. Practicing deep listening, honing sharp questions. If you practice talking, you'll talk. If you practice asking and listening, you'll learn and you'll lead.
I love that. Shift from preparing the answer to preparing the question. And step 5 is customize. This is the human element. The source is so clear on this. You have to tailor your language, your priorities, not just to the company, but to the person. Their personal pressures, their specific concerns, you have to make them feel like you've actually been thinking about their unique situation.
And finally, step 6, minimal documentation. Use only the materials that strictly serve that single goal. No more slides just to have them. If a slide doesn't move you toward that one next step, it's a decoration.
A decoration for busyness. It's adding friction, not insight.
Yes. And when you execute those 6 steps with that kind of discipline, you move to the final stage, elimination. When you walk into a meeting with a clear, single goal, sharp questions, and true presence, the client feels seen. They feel respected. They feel like today is their birthday.
Because they're the center of attention and they're making real, quantifiable progress.
And when a client feels that level of focus, the relationship just advances naturally. You spend way less time trying to persuade them of your value and far more time just collaborating on the future. The relationship basically propels itself forward, out of that anchor and onto the new map.
What stands out to me here is that most professionals, they don't lack skill. They lack the map, the vision for the relationship, and the discipline to create that next step. But there's one more piece missing, isn't there? The thing that moves you from illumination to a signed contract.
That last piece is the courage to ask questions. Specifically, the courage to ask questions that might reveal an uncomfortable truth. A well-crafted, courageous question is really the only tool that uncovers the hidden, unspoken needs of the client. Needs they might not even realize they have yet.
And if you're wondering where your future contracts are hidden, they are right there, buried in those unspoken needs that only courageous, goal-oriented questions can reveal. Stop relying on echoes. Start asking.
So our mission today was to give you that shortcut, to move you from walking blindly in the forest to holding the map. The fundamental shift here is from passive maintenance to active next step generation.
If you've been relying on that comfortable belief that doing good work means the phone will automatically ring, challenge that positive bias. Challenge it right now.
Don't let your most valuable relationships just wander in the forest. Grab your map, define your purpose, and move.
And here's our final provocative thought. Look at your calendar for this coming week. Do you have a single client meeting that's been prepared not just as a check-in, but specifically engineered, using those 6 steps as a measurable turning point, a true next step with a binary outcome? If the answer is no, what immediate 90-day action will you take to create that specific tactic and shift that relationship from just existing to actually growing?